Hello.
Is he okay?
G'day and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be checking out the list, the deck that got top 2 at a regional, Zoro Sanji. No one saw this coming. So what we're going to be looking at today is the deck list, and then I have found some replays of the regional where our Zoro Sanji player has played, so we get to see the deck in action. Much better than me trying to play it out, because I'm not familiar with this list in particular. Have played some Zoro Sanji, but not this kind of list. So we're going to let the expert do his job when it comes to this. Speaking of the expert, his name is Luca Forjan. I'm probably butchering his name, I apologize, but he's the pilot of this deck, and he is a very decorated One-Piece player. He's won a regionals, won a treasure cup, come second in the European Championship, topped a few other regionals and treasure cups, is apparently pretty good at Yu-Gi-Oh as well, like a Master Duel World Champion. So this guy is absolutely insane. And when I first saw this, I thought maybe this is a bit of a fluke, but when I learned more about the player, Luca, he's crazy. So excited to kind of see what his list looks like. Excited to see the gameplay as well. All right, jumping over the sim, we're going to look at the deck list here. So first of all, let's start with the leader for anyone who doesn't know what Zoro Sanji does. So Zoro Sanji, green, blue leader, 5,000 power. Effect is Don ×1 once per turn. When attacking, you can bounce back one of your characters with the cost of 2 or more to restand one of your other characters with 7,000 power or less. So you can get some good aggression going on with Zoro Sanji. And so typically you're not going to run a lot of cards that have high stats in terms of attack, because you're going to really limit yourself from what you can restand. And as you can see in this list here, everything is under that stat line of 7,000 power except for one, which is the Mihawk, which we'll talk about in just a moment. When I first saw that this deck had topped, my initial thoughts, we've dodged some Bonnies. That's usually a horrible matchup for Zoro Sanji because it just makes your leader's ability non-existent every turn, the Bonnie. Other things that Zoro Sanji is usually not good into is like your hard removal decks, so things like your Lucci or Sakazuki, and we haven't seen a whole lot of those running around in the meta. So basically, if you dodge Bonnies, I think everything else you generally have a pretty decent matchup into. And I'm not sure exactly of what his run was when it came to getting all the way to second. We know the matches that played on stream, which we'll see at least one from each of the ones that have played from stream. So we'll talk about them as we go along. All right, let's take a deep dive into the list here. So first of all, running a full place of the Prona. We know this from Green Zoro. This is a slash searcher and a green event searcher. No green events, so basically you're going to be searching slash characters. What are the targets for Prona? Well, first of all, the Koshiro is a great target. There's a blocker that also protects slash characters with a cost of 5 or less from being KO'd by an effect. Great card, 4 copies of this one. Next slash character that we have, Kozaburo. This is the 3 cost, 2,000 power body, 2,000 counter. On play, rest something with 2 cost or less, and then you can KO one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 1 or less. Great card into Rayleigh or like Bello Betty that love to run a lot of low cost bodies that can also be super aggressive, otherwise searchable 2k counter. Next up, we have Mihawk. 2k counter allows you to play a slash character with a cost of 4 or less rested. You have some great targets for that. Speaking of which, we'll quickly touch on those, which is the first one is your Zoro here, which is from EBO2. 4 cost, 5,000 body, 1,000 counter. This is the one on play. You can rest something with a cost of 4 or less. And then if your opponent has 2 or more characters, it gains character rush. So good once again into those boards that like to go wide, like your Rayleigh. Jumping down here, the other really good target for the Mihawk is the Cavendish. This card's really good in this deck. 4 cost, 6,000 body. When attacking, once per turn, draw 2 cards, trash 1 card. Would be even more broken if it wasn't a once per turn effect, because you can restand it obviously with the leader's ability there, but great way to build up some hand size. The other great target for the Mihawk is the VV, 3 cost, 1,000 counter, on play, 5 cards or less in your hand, you draw 2 cards. So both these cards are also slash, they're also searchable off the Prona, but they're your best targets when it comes to the Mihawk. The other good target is the Arlong, which on play you discard 1 card from your hand, and then your opponent's rested leader cannot attack during the next turn. Really good into Green Zoro. You're going to be nullifying 2 attacks. Absolutely insane. So it's not like it cannot refresh. It does refresh. Attacks just cannot happen. So even if the Green Zoro restand their leader with the 3 cost event, they still can't attack with it. But they're probably your main targets when it comes to the Mihawk. Now, jumping on to more of those slash searchable characters, we have a 2K in the Hachan, basically just used there as a 2K. Does synergize with the Vanderdecken, though, is a target for the Vanderdecken. Vanderdecken, while we're talking about it, costs you 2 on play, trash a Fishman from your hand, KO anything that's rested. So you can trash itself, you can trash the Hachan, you also trash the Arlong to KO anything. Great form of removal. Next card on the list here, full playset of the Blocker Law. So 5 cost 6,000 body. On play, return one of your characters to your hand, then you can play one character from your hand with a cost of 3 or less. Basically going to be recycling the Vivi with this one. The other great target to recycle is the Vanderdecken. Get multiple KOs, get multiple draws, or you can also play out some of your searches here in the Perona and the Nami, which we'll talk about in a moment. But continuing on with our searchable slash characters off the Perona, we have the Mihawk insane card. Basically a full cost 8,000 body blocker. Unfortunately, cannot be restood with the leader's ability, so just keep that in mind. But all around, pretty insane card. Now that wraps up the slash characters. Now Nami is the other searcher in the deck, which searched for East Blue cards. So the East Blue targets, we have the Koshiro, the Kozubaru, the Zoro, the Hachan, the Arlong. They are all the targets that are searchable off the Nami. Now, there is one card that we haven't mentioned yet, which is the card way at the end here, which is the Sabo. So the Sabo and the Vanderdecken are the only cards in the deck that are not searchable. The Sabo, the effect here is if you have a character other than Sabo with the original cost of 7 or lower, that would be removed from the board by any kind of effect. You may return this card to your hand instead. So just another form of protection, mainly going to be for things like your Cavendish or things like your Law, or things like the Arlong. Otherwise, you're not really going to try and protect much else with the Sabo. All right, the first game that we'll be looking at that Luca is featured in on the stream is round 7 of Swiss. So he's going into a matchup against Rayleigh, a nice, really aggressive deck. Luca is going first here, playing the Perona. Seeing what slash characters we can grab with the search. There's quite a few Mihawks in hand there, so we're probably going to grab one of those. I think we see a Cavendish in hand there as well, so great target to play out that combo, that Mihawk into the Cavendish next turn when we're on 3 Don. And then going over to the Rayleigh's turn. Rayleigh runs a bunch of searches, so I'd be very surprised if nothing happens here on the very first turn. Searches like Buggy, you got your Shakiyaku, which is being played out here, looking the top few cards. Looks like there are a few options in there. Caught a glimpse of a Sanji in there, grabbing the Observation Haki. This is just a searcher event, which may even be played out with this remaining Don, unless there is a Buggy in hand to go searching for some events as well. There's also some list run Nami. I think maybe I did see a Buggy in hand there. So yeah, a few options that Rayleigh can go through. End up going with the Observation Haki, so attaching a Don to leader and then looking at the top few cards, see if they can grab any of their pieces. And then yeah, find a key one in the Luffy. Great card for the Rayleigh deck. You get to spam the board, and then Luffy also gets to get buffed constantly, which just makes it insane. So over to Luca's turn, swinging 5,000. The Rayleigh player takes it, and then resting 3 Don, playing out the Mihawk to play out the Cavendish, and just setting up nicely for next turn. So the Rayleigh player is on 4 Don. We're probably going to see that Luffy be played out that we saw just a turn ago, found off the search. So it looks like we might be seeing that right now, gathering all the Don. I'm assuming we're going to see a Luffy being played out here. So yep, there is a Luffy being played out. Going to be using the Luffy's effect, revealing a Mole Pistol, and I think that's the Observation Haki there. So Mole Pistol, a scary card, probably going to get rid of that Cavendish coming turn. And then we're going to play out the Brook off the Luffy's effect. Luffy's effect will attach a Don. The Brook's effect will attach 2 Don, which is just insane. So basically got a 1 cost Luffy into a free Brook, and then you're going to swing 8 in the Cavendish. So is a little bit more counter than you probably want to ideally kind of get rid of with this turn, but it looks like Luca may have the counter in there. See, there's a few 2Ks in there, a couple of 1Ks. So this should easily be defended, and we're not too stressed about using a few cards to keep this Cavendish alive, because it's basically going to almost regain both those cards from its effect when it does get to attack next turn. So it looks like Luca's going to use 2/2Ks to get out of the swing, the Hachan and the Sabo. So now it is over to Luca, the Zoro Sanji's turn. Going to be on 5 Don here. So there is a blocker Mihawk in hand, so that could be the play here. We also could use Leader's ability, bounce back the 2K to get 2 swings in with the Cavendish. So using the Cavendish's effect here. So they're drawing to another Cavendish. Looks like there's a Mihawk in hand there as well. So a couple of options in terms of what cards you may want to trash. You may want to get rid of the Cavendish. You generally don't need multiple, but we do know the Rayleigh player has the Mole Pistol in hand. So it's probably going to get rid of that Cavendish. So you might want to take the other Cavendish here to make sure there's a backup. So your target might be to trash would be the Mihawk. So it'd either be between the Cavendish and Mihawk, I'd say, from what I'm seeing in hand right now. And looks like, yeah, getting rid of the Mihawk. So valuing a extra copy of Cavendish. Rayleigh player uses the Observation Haki to counter out. Looks like we might be seeing swinging 5K, so probably going to be just seeing a law play coming in here next. Rayleigh player takes that swing. And then you're resting 5 Don, playing at the law. You can bounce back either Perona or the Mihawk, but I'll probably say bounce back the Mihawk just to have an extra 2K counter in hand. And looks like that is what is happening. And then you probably want to play something like the VV out to just draw a couple of cards. And then so you've definitely made up those 2 cards you used to counter out to save the Cavendish. So just, replenishing the hand, really great value there. So Rayleigh's turn is up next. 6 Don can just be nice and aggressive with those current bodies on board. Could also go for building more of a board. We do know that Mole Pistol is in there, which we've mentioned a couple of times. So probably going to have 4 Don used for the Mole Pistol, 2 Don left over. The leader can buff something by 2,000 as well. Probably going to buff the Brook or something like that just to get at least a couple of swings in. Okay, looks like we're going to be seeing a Boa Hancock be played out first of all. Going to go searching, see if we can find any of the other key pieces that Rayleigh may be needing. There is the Conqueror's Haki, so this one will give everything on your opponent's board minus 1,000, and then I believe, does it buff by 2,000 for the battle that it's played in, or is it just another minus 2,000? Either way, it's like a 3K buff, but there's a permanent 1K minus on your opponent's side of the field. So Boa Hancock is also handy. We might see the effect be used here where you can just trash to attach 2 Restodon onto your leader. So basically getting a free search, trading the Boa for the Conqueror's Haki, and then using those 2 Don to just get a bit of a buff. So then the Luffy gets the buff there as well. So it is currently sitting on 6,000. Going to be swinging 7 in life, maybe. Would be too easy to swing to counter out the Cavendish swing. So yeah, it is into life. Luca does take that one. And I'm going to assume we're going to see Leader's ability here. I'm going to reveal a couple of cards. So Observation and Conqueror's Haki. I think they're indicated there to the Luffy. So I think the Luffy's now going to be sitting at 8,000. I don't think they indicated to the Brook. And then going to be playing the Mole Pistol, getting rid of the Cavendish. And going to be swinging, I'm assuming 8. I think this is where that buff went from the Leader's ability. They're going to be swinging 8,000 into life. And Luke is going to either need to give 2 2Ks or block, give a 2K and 1K. I don't know if he wants to take it, but he may. Let's just kind of see what his thought process is here. And yes, it is confirmed that Luffy does have that extra buff. Nice big swing coming in to the Zoro and Sanji here. So it looks like we're going to be seeing a block coming in from the law. And looks like we are going to be countering out of it with the Mihawk, which we knew we had previously, plus a 1K to get out of that swing. So going over to the Zoro Sanji's turn now. Seeing what they want to do here. So we are going to be sitting on the 7 Don. So we do have a couple of Arlongs in hand, so we can use an Arlong effect to stun a leader. There is a Vanderdecken in hand as well, can be using that to kind of KO the Luffy fairly cheaply. But another option is you might just want to swing a few times into the Luffy just to try and chip away at the Rayleigh's hand size here. Really limit their resources. So swing 6 with a Law. I think that's going in at Luffy here. Not too sure where that attack was indicated towards, but I'd say maybe it is going to be going in at that Luffy. We'll kind of find out what kind of counter is being used, but as there's quick shuffles happening in the hand there, I think there's only really events in hand, so it's always going to be about a 2k counter if counter is used. And we are going to be countering out with the observation haki there. And then going to be swinging 6 again, bouncing back the VV to hand, restanding the Law. So you're going to be asking for another one of those events to get out of this swing wherever it is going. Going to be going with the unblockable event there. That's always something you have to be very wary of when playing against Rayleigh. Generally don't want to go down to 0 life because, yeah, and even if you have a wall of blockers, you could probably still die thanks to that event. So you're going to be swinging 6. Again, this one looks like it's definitely going into the Luffy. So see if they want to give up another event. I don't know how many events are in hand right now. They may not want to give up another one just to make sure they can always activate that leader's ability. I do see a buggy, so they can always search another one. But the Luffy does end up going there. And we're going to be playing out a Perona. Going to go searching, see what we can find. There's Arlong, there's a VV, there's Koshiro there. And there's a Zoro there. So the Zoro is actually not a bad option going into Rayleigh because on play you can rest 4 cost or less, but then you can also then swing into something the same turn it is played. So Zoro is quite handy for a bit of board control against these low kind of cost boards that go wide. So we are grabbing that Zoro, the nice winner Zoro. And we may even see this being played out this turn to swing into one of those characters. We do have 5 done left over. Okay, we're just going to prioritize getting the second copy of Cavendish out on board, trying to get that value with the drawing of the Cavendish. So we're going over to the Rayleigh players here. They definitely can see like an observation haki, sorry, on a Conqueror's haki in there. I may have got a glimpse of another mole pistol in there though. So that Cavendish may not be living very long. See if we can catch another flash of the hand at some point. But looks like we're going a buggy search. Trying to find some more events. Luffy, buggy, Sanji, unblockable, and a Conqueror's haki, I believe, is the other card that is off that search there. So we're probably going to see... Probably going to say you're going to go with the Conqueror's haki here. Just that extra defense is really nice. Okay, now we're going with the unblockable one. So we're going to be, looks like we're going to be using Leader's ability here. The unblockable and the Conqueror's haki have been revealed. Buffing up the Brook, so the Brook's going to be sitting at 5, and looks like we're going to attach another Don, so sitting at 6. And then is the Brook going to be swinging in at the Law? Are we going to be swinging in at Life? Okay, we're going to play that mole pistol. So there was another mole pistol. Say goodbye to that Cavendish. These Cavendish are having a hard time sticking on board. We're going to be swinging 6 into something. Don't know if this is going to be going into Life or the Law. Probably say you want to try and pressure Life a little bit more here. And it is, yeah, going into Life. Luca does take that. It is another VV coming in off Life there. And then going to be swinging 7,000 with the Leader. Looks like this is probably going to go into Life again. Don't think Luca has any 2Ks in hand right now. A few Arlongs in there. We've got a Vanderdecken, VV, Zoro. So yeah, it doesn't look like there's any 2Ks, which is a bit rough. It probably doesn't want to go down to 1 life though. That's always very scary. Going down to 1 or 0 life against a Rayleigh player. So may end up just using 3 cards to counter out of this one. Unfortunately, no Cavendish on board to be able to replenish some of those cards. There is the VVs there, so VV can help fill the hand up a bit. You can bounce it, play it out again, get the double draw effect going on, which can basically mitigate everything you're going to be getting rid of. So we are going to be using 3 1Ks, a Vanderdecken, a VV, and the Zoro, which we grabbed from the search the previous turn. So now it's back over to Luca, Zoro, Sanji. 9 Don we're on now, I believe. So unfortunately no Mihawk in hand because we got rid of it early in the game. This kind of would be a nice time to play that out. But we may end up going with a VV, just trying to see what else we can kind of pick up from the draw. And there are those 2 copies of Arlong we've mentioned before. Okay, we're going to go searching with the Perona first, seeing what we can find off of that. Looks like there's a Law and a Cavendish, probably the ones you want to kind of go for. Maybe going for the Law just to have an extra blocker on board, and that's exactly what is being grabbed, the Law. So it looks like we're going to be attaching a Don onto the Perona, swing into the Brook, which is very nice plays, using those Dons and characters very optimally. Going to be swinging 6 into lead, asking for one of those events, or just going down to 2 life as a Rayleigh player. So there's a Kid and Killer, there's a couple of Conqueror's Haki, and then the Unblockable. That's the hand for the Rayleigh player right now. And then did we go into another event? I'm trying to catch what that event is that we picked up off life. Have no idea, but let's see what Luke is doing here. We're going to play out the Law, bouncing back the Perona, and then we're going to play out the VV to draw a couple of cards. And then we're going to be attaching maybe both our Don to leader, just one Don to leader here. Going to be swinging, going to be restanding the blocker Law, which is rested. I may just use this extra Don as a bit of a bluff as to maybe running some events. Now, okay, we are attaching to the leader, going to be swinging 7,000 power, bouncing back the VV, restanding the Law. And then the Zoro Sanji player's turn is done. The Rayleigh goes down to 1 life. We'll see what the Rayleigh player can kind of do here this turn. We know we've got a fair few events. I'm not sure if we have seen any other characters. Unfortunate for them for not seeing more Luffys. You probably want to see more of them early on, which would have made this matchup a lot better for the Rayleigh player there. I think there's another Boa in there, so he may even be able to go searching to try and find a Luffy. So that's exactly what's happening. We're going to play the Boa. I'm going to go searching, Nami Brook, maybe another Conqueror's Haki. There, okay, got a Mole Pistol. There we go. So there is a way to get rid of one of those Laws coming up. So that will require 4 Don. Then there'll be 4 Don left over still to work with. You can still use the leader's ability to get a bit of a extra buff. And the Boa can still trigger its effect. So basically, you still have like 12 Don worth of things to work with here. So looks like we're going to be triggering the Boa's effect here. Popping down in trash, popping the 2 rested Don on the leader. So we're going to be swinging 7,000 power into life. This may be a block and 2K. Have we picked up any 2Ks off those draws? Looks like we are going to go a block and a 2K. And the Mole Pistol is probably going to come down now to get rid of the other blocker and then allowing the other swings to go in a lot easier. So it looks like we're grabbing 2 cards here to trigger the leader's ability, which we're going to be buffing the Buggy most likely. Buggy's a great card, cannot be KO'd by Slash Stuff, which is basically everything on board right now outside of the Perona. So the Laws and leader cannot swing into the Buggy to KO it. The Buggy is getting that buff. So currently at 5, attaching 2 Don. So it's going to be a 7,000 power swing. I wonder if it's going to see another block and 2K here. And it's also interesting that the Mole Gun, Mole Pistol wasn't used this turn. But Luca takes that life. Got a nice collection of Arlongs going in hand there. Alright, looks like we're going to be playing 4 for Kid and Killer here. So that's automatically going to be a 7,000 power swing. Could attach another 2 Don to make it a 9,000 power swing, which could be huge. Maybe force out that block. But if it stays swinging in at 7,000, this might just be another easy block plus a 2k counter. So it looks like we're going to be attaching a Don. So this is going to be an 8,000 power swing. So if we choose to block, it's going to be 2k, 1k, which I'm not sure if there was another 2k in there. No, just going to be taking that, going down to 0 life, which is pretty scary. But we do know there are a couple of Arlongs in hand, so we can stun the leader to make sure that that unblockable event cannot be used. The unblock event only gives the leader the unblockable thing. So everything else on board cannot become unblockable. So as long as there's other blockers there, which we've got plenty of laws, we should be looking pretty safe if we move on to our next turn. I don't know if there is a world that you kind of push for game here. The Rayleigh's hand's still pretty decent, and we know there's a lot of events in there. They're all basically going to be 2Ks. There is a Don still standing. And Luca does know there is a Conqueror's Haki on board, which will minus everything by 1,000 power. So, yeah, may not have enough resources here for Zoro Sanji to try and push for game. But it looks like we're going to be swinging 6,000 into the 5,000 Kid and Killer, because that does go back down to 5,000 when it's on the opponent's turn. So that one's just being taken there. So one of the threatening bodies going to be taking out. We might see a buff on a Perona swing into the buggy here, but we are going to be going forward on to activate the Arlong, pitching an Arlong so that the Rayleigh cannot attack next turn. Going to be getting rid of a Perona. We're going to be playing out a Law, bouncing back a Perona. Playing out a Vivi, drawing a couple of cards. Interesting that he didn't attach a Don swing in just to try and get some resources out of hand. But then we're going to be using Leader's ability, bouncing back the Vivi we just played out, restanding the Law. So there's 3 blockers on board, a giant hand size. See if any counter is going to be coming out of this one. And looks like we're going to be using a unblockable to counter that. Going to swing another 6 with the Law, being nice and aggressive there. Trying to whittle that hand size down. May be a little bit risky if there's another rush character on board, but Luca does have a giant hand size, so no, he's going to get 2 blocks. Giant hand size to cover the block from the rush character, maybe. Seeing what the Rayleigh play wants to do here, whether they want to get rid of something in hand or go down to 0 life. And if Luke is able to survive, yeah, okay, going into 0 life, which is a Luffy, they get off that life. But Luke is, if he can survive next turn, looking pretty good for the following turn to try and close out the game. Now, the question is here, are we going to swing with the other Law that can swing here? Are we going to be aggressive there? Do we trust that that hand is good enough to get out of an additional swing? And it looks like we might be doing exactly that, being a bit more aggressive with the Law. Thinking long and hard, no, okay, we're not doing it. We're going to decide to keep the blocker up. Probably a smarter choice, just in case there are some rush bodies. Could even have multiple rush bodies as well. Most Rayleigh lists are running a combination of the Rush Zoro and Kid and Killer. I think usually 2 of each, so usually around 4 copies of some rush bodies. And I think there is still that Mole Pistol in hand, isn't there, as well? So that's just a way to get rid of one of the blockers. So also probably smart to keep up 2 blockers there as well. So first of all, we're going with the Shaku Yaku search. Yeah, seeing all the Luffys now, there's one of those Rush Zoros. So these Luffys are coming a little bit too late for the Rayleigh player. And Rayleigh is usually most vulnerable when on 0 life because they generally don't run any blockers. They don't run anything that can protect them outside of the multiple events there. So we're going to be using Leader's ability here, revealing that Mole Pistol, that Conqueror's Haki, buffing up the buggy. And it's going to be at 6k with that Adon attached to it. And we're going to be using the Mole Pistol on one of the blockers there. So yeah, smart that we didn't swing in with it last turn. So going to be swinging 6,000 into Life here is going to be easy 2k counter. The hand size is still huge from the Zoro Sanji there. We're going to try to swing with the Rayleigh here. Cannot swing because of the Arlong effect last turn though. And okay, it's all caught. The judges caught it. So going all back there. The Don cannot be removed because that was attached to the leader. So 3 Don left over. Just going to be passing. So assuming those 3 Don are going to be left up for all those Conqueror's Hakis that we've seen in all those searches in hand before, which may make this turn a little bit tricky to try and navigate. You probably do want to try and push for game here. Unblockable event can just make you lose next turn. But we're going to be swinging 7,000, going to be using the Conqueror's Haki there. So it's a 3k kind of counter there, and then everything else gets a minus 1,000 power for the whole turn. So the laws are now sitting at 5,000. So attaching 2 Don to the law here, going to swing for another 7,000. Going to be using another one of the Conqueror's Haki, so going down another 1,000. So the other law sitting at 4,000. So you're going to attach 3, you're going to swing 7 again. Is there going to be a third one in hand? Which I think there might be. And yeah, I can see it there. Yeah, there is a third one. So minusing everything by 3,000, which makes the leader 2,000. And that law is currently sitting at, so it's minus 3,000, just currently sitting at 6,000. So we're going to attach a Don to leader here, I assume, restand that law with all the Don on it. So attaching a Don just to be able to get leader's effect. Going to bounce back the law, restand the law. That's currently on 6, and then attach another 3. It's going to swinging 9,000 into, is that a 3-card hand? So going to 7, 8, and then 9. So just getting away with the win there for the Zoro Sanji. If there was another event in there, that would have been enough to counter out, and that would have probably been game for Rayleigh the following turn. All right, the next game that Luca does feature in on the regional stream is all the way into Top Cut. So this is top 16. There was, I believe, it was a top 32 for this tournament, but top 16, so obviously won that first round in Top Cut, and going against a blue-purple Luffy, up Luffy, and I believe Luca was the highest seed, so Luca does get to choose in this first best-of-3 game whether he wants to go first or second, so we'll see what he wants to choose. All right, players all set, ready to rock and roll here. We're just about to see who is going first and who is going second. Looks like Lucas chose to go second in this matchup, which might be a little nice because you can always try and get a 6k swing in. Going to be searching with the Nami first of all. Unfortunately, Cavendish is not searchable. Is that? No, there is a heart chart. I'm going to say maybe is that a whiff there? I think that might have been the only valid target from that Nami search. And then it's going back over to the up Luffy. 3 Don. Do they have the Zoro Juro to play out? Looks like they don't. So this can be swinging 6. Luca takes that and then playing a gear 2 to ramp it on anyway. So they do get some nice ramp there, which is really good for them. So 4 Don here for the Zoro Sanji. We can play out a Mihawk into something here, or we might just establish a Cavendish. Okay, we're going to be paying 3, so it looks like we're going to be seeing a Mihawk into Cavendish here. I'm going to be assuming a Cavendish. Could also play the Arlong out here to... Oh, okay, we are playing the Arlong. Are we going to stun the leader? Or are we just going to choose to play a body out? Looking like there's no Arlong effect there, so just attaching a Don onto leader. Swing 6,000, bouncing back the Mihawk here to maybe the Nami to get another search. Bouncing back something, bouncing back the Nami, restaying the Arlong to protect it. That Mihawk can become an attacker, so maybe slightly better to bounce back the Nami, but the 2k counter is always handy. But up Luffy does counter out of the swing with the 2k Usohachi, which is good to know. They generally don't run too many 2ks, but you're countering a 2k with a swing that only required a 1k, so some good knowledge for the Zoro Sanji player here. Going to be swinging 6,000 into life. We're probably going to see a God Thread here. That did see a few in hand. A few, maybe 1, maybe 2. I don't know. There's at least 1 in hand right now, which will probably say goodbye to that Arlong. But going to be swinging 6 first of all. asking for a 2K. Looks like there's definitely a Sabo there. Okay, we're just going to be taking that. And then the God Thread does come down, getting rid of the Arlong. So not looking super flash right now for Zoro Sanji. And then, yeah, going over to Zoro Sanji's turn here. See what they want to try and do to kind of build themselves back into this game. So far, not looking great. The Up Luffy's seen some great ramped pretty much every turn so far. So they're going to be probably using Leader's ability very soon. I don't know if they are on 8 right now. They might be on 7. Luke is going to be playing out the Nami here, going searching for some East Blue bodies, going to be grabbing the 2K. And then got 4 Don left over, so could attach 3 to Mihawk here, could play out, Vivi's not going to do us anything, because too many cards in hand. Going to be playing Arlong, going to be using Arlong's effect this time though. Going to be pitching a card to stun the leader, pitching the Zoro, stunning the Luffy, and then it'll go over to the Luffy. There's going to be no swings coming in, but will the Luffy be able to get some ramp going on here? They probably don't need it at this stage. There is another God Thread. Yeah, there's another God Thread in here. So the Arlong might not be living either. Kind of similar to what we saw last game, the 4-cost 6k bodies just not surviving turns. Mole Pistols last time, God Threads this game. So it doesn't look like the Luffy player has many options outside of using God Thread. Looks like there's Sanji and basically a bunch of counter events. So yeah, going to be using the God Thread, getting rid of the Arlong. The ramp doesn't really matter too much here because going to be at the point of having the leader's ability live next turn anyway. Going back over to Zoro Sanji there. So successfully be able to get through a turn without taking any damage, which is always nice. But now how can Luca get set up in a better position? So first of all, playing the Mihawk, a nice 4-cost 8,000 body. Then the 4 Don left over. Do we want to try and establish like Cavendish here that once again we're not applying any pressure then to the opponent here. So maybe want to be going for a few swings in with the Mihawk and the leader, bouncing back the Nami to have that in hand. Looks like we are going to be attaching 3 Don, going to be swinging 7,000 into Luffy here, asking for a 2k counter or some sort of counter event, unless they want to take it. They haven't taken any life, so they may even just take this first swing here. And they do take it, so we're going to see a 6k swing, going to bounce back the Nami, restand the Mihawk, so it's going to be 6 and then probably another 7k swing into life there. So this one, we're going to be giving 1k counter, the Rosie. I assume that was what they just grabbed off life because we didn't see that in hand before. Swinging another 7. They're going to be requiring an event here. So may even get them to use a Bagua here. And looks like that's exactly what is happening, using the Bagua to counter out of that one. And that'll be it for Zoro Sanji this turn. Up Luffy using the effect here to look at the top 5 cards. Can see that there's a Nami, Uso Hachi, maybe a Zoro Joro there as well. Maybe the Ramp Zoro there as well. Looks like we might be choosing something here. Choosing the Uso Hachi. And then leaving on the top of the deck, drawing the Bagua. And so maybe able to Sanji here. So Sanji into like a Nami. I think I saw a Nami in those top few. Just an easy block there off the 6k swing. We are going to be going into the Sanji and then into the Rosie. Okay, so there was a Rosie in there. And then Rosie's going to be ditching a card from hand to draw 2 cards. And then be able to restand a couple of Don at the end of the turn, which is really nice. So just deciding what card they want to pitch here to get that extra draw. So ditching a Bagua, going to be drawing into a Nami and something else. But restanding 2 Don. So 3 Don active for the Zoro Sanji to try and deal with. And then 2 bodies, which are pretty decent bodies here. Luca does have a giant hand size. There's a few Namis in there, a few searches. Basically, I'm going to find you some 2Ks or some Arlongs in there. Might be worthwhile trying to find. Looks like there might be a Vanderdecken, so it might be worthwhile trying to find some sort of Fishman to KO some things. the following turn. So going to be attaching 3, going to be doing what we did last time, swinging 7,000, going and using that Uso Hachi, which we saw off the leader's ability, so we knew that was in hand. Now, the question is, what is played out here? So we're going to go with the Nami, going to go searching, assumedly going to be grabbing a Fishman East Blue card, or looks like this might even be a whiff, because I think that's a Mihawk at the front. And a Cavendish VV, so yeah, a bit of a whiff, which is always nasty. Nami doesn't have a lot of targets, but it's just, yeah, can happen sometimes. Go bouncing back the Nami, restanding the Mihawks, who swing 6 into leader here, asking for a counter and giving that counter up with the Zoro. Going to be swinging 7,000 again, seeing if we want to get rid of an event. There's no other 2Ks in there. There's a Nami, there's a Giant, and is it a Bagua, the other one? So we may be going with the Giant here with only the one Don. Yeah, looks like we are going to go a Giant to get out of that swing. We're going to be pitching. There's only 2 cards in hand right now. There might only be 2 cards. What are you going to pitch the other event? Because I assume they want to keep the Nami as a blocker to play out next turn. So, okay, it's a pudding. That's what the other card is. It was not an event. It was a pudding. Someone needs to go to Specsavers, get their eyes checked. And then you're going to be swinging 8,000, which is just some great pressure coming through. And then we've got 4 Don left over. Maybe play out some blockers. We're going to play out the Sabo. Yeah, we're going to play out the Sabo. Just a bit of protection. So if a Mihawk, the bottom deck Mihawk gets played out, the Sabo will just go back to the Zoro Sanji's hand to protect whatever is being targeted. So just a bit of heads up kind of play there. We do actually see the Mihawk in this opening leader ability here for the UP Luffy. There looks like there's a Nami, a God Thread, and something else in there as well. And I didn't catch the card that they're going to be revealing here to draw off their leader's ability. So it looks like, okay, it's the 2K Sanji, which is also a blocker. And then deciding whether these cards go on the top or the bottom of the deck. There's no other Sanjis in sight, which is good for Zoro Sanji. Not so great for the UP Luffy. And looks like we're going to be keeping them on top of the deck. Drawing a card, and we may see a Nami or 2 being played out this turn. The Rosie will also restand 2 Don, which is always very, very nice. So you can even kind of commit to playing 2 Namis and still have 2 Don up, which is, yeah, nice about that. So going to be swinging 6 into the little Mihawk. The little Mihawk is going to go bye-byes. It looks like maybe we didn't go into that Nami. We are going to get some draw off a Nami anyway. I'm going to be attaching a Don. Going to be swinging 7,000. So we're not going to see a double Nami play here this turn. And that's just going to be a 2K, 1K. Getting rid of that Nami, which has been whiffing on some searches there. Going to be swinging 9,000 now into leader here by the looks of it. Just going to be taking that one. Getting a Perona off that hit in life. And then going to be playing 9. Going to play the Mihawk just to bottom deck the Sabo. The Sabo can't protect itself because I believe Sabo's effect states that it can't protect the Sabo, so that is going to go bye-byes as well. Rosie at the end of turn is going to restand 2 Don. And look, the board is looking pretty scary on the UP Luffy side there. That's how UP Luffy works. Can get scary pretty quickly with some big boys. There are 2 Don up. No blockers though. Unfortunately, this list of Lucas does not run like Dead Man's Game or Hody, so it cannot rest those Don. We're going to have to deal with them the traditional way of swinging in. And the Mihawk, unfortunately, cannot be restood because it is too big of a powered body. So it'll be interesting to see what Luca kind of does here to kind of stabilize, try and survive another turn. I don't see any blockers in hand there. None of the laws, none of the little bodies, blockers that the deck runs. So just going to be swinging 8,000. I'm going to be assuming into life here. Thinking about how they want to counter out of this. Looks like we might be going with an event. So going the gear 3 going up to 9. Gear 3. The gear 2 going up to 9,000 power. A nice 3k buff. Going to go searching with the Perona here next. See what they can find off the top. We can search out for our blockers here as well, which would be handy to see at this point, I believe. There might be a Mihawk in that little search. Otherwise, there's definitely a 2k you might want to grab. And if Luca already has the Vanderdeck in hand, they might want to grab the Heartchan, which I think is in the search there as well, unless they have a Fishman target in hand already to just kind of KO like the Sanji or maybe the Rosie, because the Rosie can just be annoying, get that multiple Don restood. And it looks like we're going to be going with the Mihawk off this search. So assume we're going to be seeing this Mihawk played out. So there is a blocker on board. Yep, the Mihawk is coming. So that means we still have 5 Don left over to work with, paying 2 to go the Vanderdecken to pitch an Arlong, getting rid of the Sanji. Could even double Vanderdecken here, honestly, because I think there is a Hachan in hand. So swing 6, bouncing back the Vanderdecken. So there is a potential to have another Vanderdecken come down. Just want to see if the UP Luffy lets this go or counters out of this 6 into 6k swing. So it looks like we're going to be using some sort of counter here, not letting go, going with the 2k. And then going to be going a double Vanderdecken, getting rid of the Hachan to get rid of the Rosie. The double Vanderdecken, insane plays. Now going with the UP Luffy's turn, they're going to be grabbing something off their leader's ability here. We can see there's that Rush Luffy. We can see there's Uso Hachi. Looks like there might be a God Thread in there and a Nami. I think those are all the cards that we can see from this leader's ability. See which one they want to go for. May end up going with the 2k counter. And looks like that's what they are going to be grabbing. We might be changing our mind here. Looks like we are going to be changing our mind and maybe going for a gear 2. Looks like we're going to be grabbing the gear 2 from this leader's ability. Drawing into something. And then let's see what the UP Luffy wants to do. So there are at least 2 swings here. A blocker and a life. It's going to be swinging 9,000. Going to be taking this one. See what happens here. What do they want to do? So there is that blocker on board. There's no way to remove it unless there's a red rock in hand. And generally, UP Luffy's only play 1, maybe 2, but generally it's 1 copy of a red rock. They typically run 2 kind of blue event removals with the red rock and gravity blade, probably the most common combo that I have seen running around with that. Kind of cover all your bases with having 1 of each. And looks like we might actually have a red rock in hand. We are going to be getting rid of the Mihawk blocker. Could we just see a 10k swing? Not sure exactly how big Luca's hand is right now. But at the same time, you may not want to do that as the UP Luffy, because you may leave yourself very vulnerable coming the next turn. Don't have any... or many might be just 1k counter if you've removed the events. So they may not want to just try and go for game here. And there is all the possibility in the world that Luca has enough counter to counter out a 10k swing and some. So it looks like we're going to be going for a 7,000 power swing into life here. Choosing to have 3 Don up for some events, I'm assuming here. So this is going to be a 2k, 1k. So we've got the Sabo in hand there. Kind of going with the Mihawk as the 2k counter for this one, 2k, and then the 1k of the Nami to get out of that swing. 3 cards left in Luca's hand. And I think he could have gotten out of that 10k swing by the looks of what's going on in his hand as well. So he was looking pretty set there. But let's see how Luca addresses this turn here. So there's the 3 Don up. Their giant Bagua is probably what's going to be happening in terms of the counter. And we're in a similar problem that we were earlier in the game where the Mihawk cannot be restood by the leader's ability, and you don't really have any other kind of body on board to try and help you be a bit more aggressive. Both the Perona and the Vanderdecken are pretty low in power, and it makes it even worse when you're going into a 6,000 power leader here. But we're going to go into the VV first of all, drawing a couple of cards. Are we going to see another Vanderdecken play coming in here to get rid of that Mihawk and then maybe just try and establish another blocker? We're going to be swinging 6,000. Are we going to bounce back the Vanderdecken, or are we just going to bounce back the VV to try and get some more draw? We are going to be bouncing back the Vanderdecken. We may see another Vanderdecken play here, which could be insane, which would leave Fordon left over. Could also stun the leader with an Arlong. That is also a possibility here, but that is asking for a lot of Fishman. We're going to be counting out with the Nami with that swing. We could. It looks like that is actually possible. I think there might be 2 Vanderdeckens in hand plus an Arlong. So we could see the Mihawk being KO'd. We could see the leader also being stunned here, which could be huge. So the Vanderdecken into a Vanderdecken to pop the Mihawk, massive. And then are we going to see an Arlong play here? Arlong, are we going to be using Arlong's ability? Yes. So no attacks coming in from the Luffy next turn. We did see they have the Rush Luffy though, so that could be at least one attack. There is the blocker Mihawk up though for the Zoro Sanji. So Zoro Sanji's looking pretty good this turn. Looks like they might survive this and then be able to try and swing out for game coming up into the next turn. See what Up Luffy wants to grab off leader's ability. There's Godthread, Nami, Gear 2, and some other cards which I have failed to see. So grabbing the Nami. Are we going to keep these cards on the top of the deck, bottom of the deck? We're going to be grabbing a few of them off the Nami if Nami is played out. So it looks like we're keeping the cards on top of the deck. We've settled on an order. And so a couple of options here can go with the Nami blocker, can go with the Rush Luffy. They're probably the main things you want to try and look for here this turn as the Up Luffy, given the hand they've got. Looks like we are going to go for the Nami play. Drawing a couple of cards, Usohachi, Godthread, and a Mihawk. And going to be getting rid of the Mihawk and a Godthread by the looks of it. I think that's what I caught a little flicker of, a little glimpse of. And then just passing over. So 1 blocker, 5 Don up. A lot of counter events could be happening here for the Zoro Sanji. Now, this turn is a little bit nicer because we do have an Arlong that we can restand, get a couple of swings in. There is a Mihawk we can get some swings in with as well, depending on if they give the Nami up or not in terms of a block. We're going to start with a 7,000 power swing. Going to be giving a 2k counter to get out of that one. Going to be going a 6k, bouncing back the VV, restanding the Arlong. So we just saw a 2k counter go for a 7,000 power swing, which is nice and convenient. We don't have any other counter character by the looks of it in the Up Luffy's hand. So they're going to be forced to use a counter event here or just take this life. And I think they only have the 4 cards in hand. Rush Luffy's 1. We've got a Giant. Then we've got a Bagua and a Gear 2. So basically one of every kind of event they're running as counter. Going to be using a Giant here. Pitching the Rush Luffy. Drawing 2 Bon Clays. And getting out of that swing there. So now we're going to another 7. Asking for 2k. Or some more events here going with the Gear 2. Getting out of that one there. So still 3 Don up. Still a lot of Don to try and work with. The Zoro Sanji player is going to play out the VV again. Draw a couple of cards. And Nami and something else was picked up off that draw. And we're going to be playing... Is this a Law we're going to be playing out here? Yep, Law bouncing back to Vivi, playing the Vivi, getting some insane draw going on here. And then going to be passing over to the UP Luffy. They're going to be using Leader's ability, seeing what they can try and find. So there's a Rush Luffy, there's an Ace, there's a Uso Hachi, there's a Bon Clay, and a Nami, I believe, are all the cards we're seeing off that top 5 sneaky peek. We may go with a Nami to establish another blocker. We may also want to maybe grab a Sanji to play something out, but then once again leaving just one Don up, which is probably not going to be super ideal with the current board state of the Zoro Sanji. Got a few cards that we'll be able to swing in next turn. In the leader, Arlong, Mihawk, and the Law. So it looks like we are going to be revealing the Nami, keeping everything else on top of the deck, drawing into something which I have missed, and we'll see what they want to do in terms of plays here. So I'm going to be swinging 7,000, so probably not going to be seeing a Sanji play this turn. Leaving no Don up at all would be shooting yourself in the foot right there. So 7,000, do we just go for the guaranteed block with the Mihawk? Or do we give up some cards? Looks like we are going to be going with the guaranteed easy block with the Mihawk. No other thought required into that one in terms of countering out. We've set aside 8 Don, so we may be seeing the Rush Luffy coming through here, which, yep, we are going to be using the effect. Pitching the Nami to attach a Don onto the Nami. I don't think we're choosing to bounce anything back to hand here on opponent's side of the field. I believe it does say up to, so it's not a mandatory bounce required. I think just wanted to use the effect to get a Don attached somewhere. They are getting rid of a counter out of hand though, which may or may not bite them in the bum later on. We'll kind of see how that goes. So it looks like we might be going for a block on this swing with the Rush Luffy, and we're going to be countering out to save it, a 2k and a 1k to get out of that, and then swinging 8,000 with the Nami, and then carrying out, and then that's going to be game 1 going Luca's favor. By the way, if you do want to see game 2 and the other kind of games from this regionals, I'll leave a link to the full regionals in the description down below, but we'll be jumping over to Luca's semi-final match next. And as I just mentioned, we're going to be jumping over into semi-final time. So this is game 2 of the best of 3. Luca did take game 1. There were some issues with the camera kind of cutting out, so we don't get to see all of that game happening. So we're just going to be jumping into game 2, seeing what's happening here. The GP Luffy choosing to go second this time round. Luca did choose to go second in his first game, which he did have the priority choosing that. So going the Searcher event here for the GP Luffy. Unfortunately, Zoro Sanji had no plays off their first turn there. Grabbing the Luffy Taro. So could be seeing some board spamming later on. Going off with the Nami next of all. 2 searches, which is ideal start for GP Luffy. Seeing if we can dig and find that Zoro, that Sanji pudding. Grabbing an Uso Hachi though. So no Sanji puddings to be seen right now. 3 Don for Luke here, swinging 5,000. We may see a Mihawk play going on here. Taking that swing, Mihawk into a Cavendish, ideal kind of play on your 3 Don turn right there. Going back to the GP Luffy, they did draw another Uso Hachi, so there's 2 of those in hand. Their hand size looking pretty decent right now, thanks to all those searches last turn. Are we going to see a Zoro being played out for some searching? Get additional searches going on. There is a Rush Luffy in hand there as well. So we're going to see 4 Don rested here. I think the big debate here is whether you try and take out that Cavendish or you play the Zoro out to do some searching. We're ultimately choosing to do the search option. Grabbing a Sanji pudding, which is fantastic to see. Very key piece for this deck. to function really well, have multiple of those out on board, you're going to be getting your leader's ability for free, which is absolutely insane. And choosing to just kind of starve here, so not swinging in at the leader at all. So our Zoro Sanji goes up to the 5 Don turn here. So we're going to probably see a swing from Cavendish, draw 2, trash 1, then use leader's ability, swinging 6, then restanding the Cavendish, maybe swing another 6, leaving 4 Don left over to do some other shenanigans with. So swinging with the Cavendish, drawing a couple of cards. What are we going to pitch here? Maybe it's pitching an Arlong there. Okay, so getting rid of some dead cards in hand in terms of no counter. Using a 2K Usohachi to get out of that swing. Using leader's ability, bounce back the Mihawk, restand the Cavendish. Giving another 2K for that swing. So those 2 Usohachis are gone. And there's 4 on left over. Are we going to establish another body like maybe a Cavendish? Is there another Cavendish in hand? Or are we going to establish something else? Just taking that 6K swing into the Searcher event, looking at the top 3, grabbing another Sanji pudding. That's always scary to see multiple of those going into the GP Luffy's hand. And yeah, okay, we are establishing another Cavendish. So 2 Cavendishes. Fantastic to be able to get multiple draws each turn. And now over to our GP player's turn. They draw into a giant there. So their hand is looking pretty good. Got the 2 Sanji puddings in there, which is probably what we see being played out here is one of those. And that's exactly what happened. We're going to be doing leader's ability straight away as well. Minusing 2 Don to restand 2 Don. The Sanji pudding will get one of those Don back. GP Luffy becomes a 6K as well for the rest of this turn, as well as the opponent's turn. And then there's 4 Don left over. If there is another Zoro, we might go searching again. And are we still... No, okay, we're just going to be swinging hefty. We're going to be swinging 10 into the Cavendish. And we're going to be counting out 2K, 2K, 2 Mihawks, and then a 1K, maybe a Perona. Or we're going to go VV. Yeah, we'll go VV. I think the back card in that hand is another VV, so that is all right there. Swinging 6 into the Cavendish here. Probably going to get rid of the Perona here to save that. Keep, I think that's a Vanderdecken and VV that are left in hand. The Vanderdecken's always going to be an insane card. All right, going back over to the Zoro Sanji's turn here. So we're going to be drawing 2 cards basically here, and then another 2 with the VV. So we've been gaining 4 cards, which is basically what we got rid of to keep the Cavendish around. So VV, first of all, going to be drawing 2 cards. We can also bounce back the VV to draw another 2 cards, which is absolutely insane. So we're going to see what kind of happens here. So there is a Mihawk now in hand. We're probably going to see just a 6K swing. Whether that goes into the Zoro or the leader is another question. But we're going to be swinging 6. Going to be drawing 2, trashing an Arlong, giving a 1K to counter that. Going to swing another 6, bounce back the VV, restand the Cavendish. See what counter is going to be given for this 6K swing. Going to be giving a 2K, which is always nice to see a 2K used for a 6-on-6. Going to be using the Cavendish to swing into the Zoro. Going to play the VV out again, drawing another 2 cards. And then if we swing with the Cavendish, we're going to go plus another one here. So drawing 2, and we're going to be pitching a Nami here. So just absolutely insane value there. So we drew 2, 4, 6, 8 cards that turn. Technically only kept 6 of them, but that's just, yeah, absolutely insane. So the trigger off the life here was the Searcher event. Seeing what they're going to grabbing a Frankie off this one. So that's going to go to hand, and then I believe that's going to be the end of the Zoro Sanji's turn, going back to the GP Luffy. They draw a 2K Sanji. So we're probably going to see another copy of Sanji Pudding being played out here to make leader's ability nice and free. Looks like we are going to be seeing, I think that's 5 Don. We are resting right now. Oh, okay, maybe changing our mind. We're not going to be playing something out here. If they do go do that, that's going to be 5 Don. They're going to restand 2, gain back another 2. So they'll be at 6 Don afterwards, which means they can still play something like the Secret Luffy out after that. So we are going to be seeing a... Oh, no, we're going to see a Luffy Taro here. Going to play out the second Sanji pudding anyway. And then we're going to be using Leader's ability to -2, restand 2, and then gain back 2 from the Sanji and pudding. So leaving 4 Don left over. Is there another Zoro in hand? Going to go searching again? Or are we going to attach some Don, do some swings? Here we are. So we're going to swing 8k into a 6k Cavendish. Going to probably just do a 2k, 1k, a Mihawk, and a Nami to get out of that swing. Could also see another swing coming in from the leader into one of these Cavendish as well. Going to be swinging 8,000 into a Cavendish here, asking for another 2k, 1k, which looks like we very easily have in Luca's hand. So going to be using 2k, 1k, getting out of that, and then going back over to Zoro Sanji's turn. So it is looking like a pretty scary board on the other side, but Zoro Sanji's not taking any life. GP choosing to kind of starve in terms of that kind of resource, but not a problem because of all these Cavendishes that are on board, the VV that gets recycled every time as well, to make sure that hand size is always looking very, very healthy. So see what the plan of attack is here. No blockers up, 1 life, 1 Don active. Not sure how many in hand for GP Luffy, but we know there's at least 1 giant in hand there. So we're going to be seeing a 6k swing first of all, drawing 2, and we're going to be pitching a card, pitching the Law, using the Frankie to get out of that swing. Now we're going to be attaching a Don onto leader here. Going to swing 6, bounce back the VV, restand the Cavendish. See what GP wants to do in terms of countering out of this one. Going to be using a 2k, which is always nice to see when they don't have the 1ks. Going to be swinging another 6. This is probably going to be asking for a 2k or an event to get out of this, or they're just going to take this. We'll kind of see what happens. Probably don't want to take it because everything can be stacked on the other Cavendish. So going to be going with the 2k Sanji. And then going at Mihawk here. Leaving 4 Don left over. Can play another VV here. I think that'll take us to 6 cards in hand right now. So if the VV's played out, there'll be 5 or less. So can draw a couple of cards. And they're probably just going to see another 6k swing coming in from the Cavendish there as well. So you probably want to do it in that order. Do the VV first, then do the swing with the Cavendish. Because the Cavendish will put you overboard. So yeah, we're going to do the VV, draw a couple of cards. And then we're going to swing 6, just 6, or we're going to swing 7 with the Cavendish. We're going to swing 7 with the Cavendish. So asking for 2k. So I'm going to go a giant, getting rid of the Secret Luffy. Going to be minusing 2 Don. Going to draw a couple of cards. So it's 3 cards in hand right now for GP Luffy, going on to 4 as the beginning of their turn. Seeing what they want to do here. I think there was a 2k. It might be a Zoro in hand. And then 2 cards I can't really make out. It might be another Zoro Juro and then some sort of counter event. But we're going to be swinging 8,000 into a Cavendish here. We're just going to be seeing a 2k, 1k, very familiar kind of story. And looks like I'm going to swing another 8 into a Cavendish. Going to see another 2k, going to see another 1k to get out of those swings. We're going to see another 8k coming in from the other Sanji pudding. We sure are. There is another 8k going into the Cavendish. Are we going to counter out again? Which I think we definitely do have the counter. We're going to block And then we're going to give a 1k to keep the blocker alive. And then going to be paying 4 for the Zoro. Going to go searching, seeing what I can grab off this search. And then probably going to use Leader's ability to restand 2, going back to 4 to 1 basically after using Leader's ability. And we're going to be grabbing a giant off that search. And then here we're going to see Leader's ability going to be happening. So minusing 2, restanding 2. The Sanji Pudding's gain back those 2 we just minused. Leader goes to 6,000. And then we're going to be swinging 8,000 again into a Cavendish. 2k, 1k, get out of it again. Yep, there it is. 2k, 1k, get out of it one more time. Going down to 1 card in hand. Going to be drawing a bunch this turn anyhow, but we may even just be able to push for game. 2 Don up. There's probably 2 giant in hand. There's at least 1. There might have been another one I saw a little glimpse of. But yeah, Zoro, Sanji looking in a pretty good position. Still got 4 life. Got a blocker up that they can keep up. They feel like they're not going to be able to push for a game here. But drawing 2, ditching an Arlong, seeing how the GP Luffy wants to respond to this 6k swing. Going to be taking it. So the 7k swing, going to be taking it. And now there's only 2 Don left up. So we can go to 8,000 kind of buff here. So we could just try to stack everything on the Mihawk, be greedy that way. Going to be going with the Cavendish 7,000 power swing, drawing 2, pitching a VV. I'm going to be counting out with the 2k. So how many cards in hand? There's 4 cards in hand now. So going to be going 7,000 again. We're going to bounce back the VV, restand the Cavendish. Going to be going... So let's go a giant, getting rid of the Bagua to counter this, and then draw a couple of cards. Rush Luffy and Rush Luffy. That is not fantastic for GP. So essentially, they've got the giant as their only current counter here. So they're going to be swinging a hefty amount into the Luffy here. So using a giant, getting rid of a Rush Luffy, drawing into 1 counter. And then, okay, they've got the 0 cost going into that there, and then countering out, then swinging 8,000, and that's going to be game. All right, there it wraps up I'm going to be calling this cozy commentary. I'm wrapped up nice and warm. We looked at some gameplay. Maybe this could be a new segment, but that wraps up our look at the Zoro Sanji list there. Once again, go check out the full kind of VOD for that tournament in the description down below. Unfortunately, the finals was not on the stream. The stream kind of cut off. I haven't seen the finals anywhere. The finals was Lucci, and then obviously Zoro Sanji ended up losing because we know we came second in this regionals. But there you go. Let us know what you think about this. Let us know if you want to see more of these kind of videos where we take a look at some topping lists, look at some gameplay from those pilots, just to see how they play their games. But yeah, thank you so much for checking out today's video. Stay beautiful, and we'll see you all in the next one.